Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first edition of this guerrilla pilot for a podcast that we're tentatively calling Changing the Questions. I am Paul Laporte. Joining me is my partner in crime, Mike Miner.
Hey,
And we're doing this barbershop quartet style to one microphone, so apologies if there's any audio issues, but if this goes well and people do like it, then we will put more time and energy into and money potentially into the audio.
2 mics.
But yes, we may actually get 2 microphones. We can afford 2. But until then, we're just going to kind of do it this way, and we wanted to at least just do something, because there's a lot to talk about in professional wrestling, and what we're going to do is we're going to kind of break all of those talking points down into just single questions that we're going to focus on each episode. We're going to try and get these out a couple times a week, and each episode is going to be dedicated to just one question. And I thought this would be a good jumping off point for the question that I think is more important now than it's been in a long time, and the question that we're looking at for the inaugural episode of Changing the Questions is, can WWE ever be great again? We've seen recently the ratings are on an almost permanent downslide. There was just a news item that came out that said last Monday's Raw's ratings were the lowest that they've been since 1997. That's 18 years. Not an all-time low, but almost as far back as you can possibly go. And it's funny because on the other side of that, NXT is so beloved and so respected, and it gets rave reviews by critics and fans alike for every single show they do, it seems. So it's a question of, can the main roster ever get that kind of positive energy to it? Can get people that excited about it again? Or is it just kind of doomed to be this kind of sludge that it's been for the past 10 years now? I'm interested to see what you think about this, Miner.
There's a creative disconnect. I think it's, one big part of it. From NXT, you see how simplistic it is, but it works, and you look at Raw, it seems to be overly complicated and long. I don't know if I could say they put too much effort into it, but it seems like something's definitely not gelling as far as the main stuff goes. But NXT is, you get that hour a week and you just keep going there, and creatively it works, but there's a disconnect between NXT and the main roster as far as creative goes.
So let me ask you the question then. Do you think WWE can ever be as good critically as it was perceived as back in the Attitude Era, or as NXT is perceived as now?
There are glimpses of greatness. You'll see it every once in a while, and, there's positive stuff every week. If you watch all 3 hours, there's stuff on there to be had that, you can get behind and enjoy. I mean, look at the New Day. That's one aspect. That's, the silly, campy aspect, and then you've got other things.
Other things, like that certainly exist, and I'm not just.
Well, there are certain things. You've got some guys up there that can actually do things. Kevin Owens being one of them, and you get behind those guys. Some of the guys that were in NXT, and you can make great things happen. But it's just a matter of pulling the trigger, and I think that's a problem. They don't trust anything but what they want to force.
Well, and that's the funny thing too, is we're not looking at this from a talent perspective, because if you look at the roster of guys they actually have, it is the best tremendous. It's ever been by a lot. You look at the Attitude Era, the Attitude Era did not have a quarter of the talented wrestlers, both in the ring and on the mic, that WWE has today.
But it was enjoyable and fun. That's
right. We'll get to writing as a different thing. Although, this is a different subject for a different time, but people look at the Attitude Era with rose-colored glasses that it certainly doesn't deserve, mainly because there was a couple really phenomenal people. But it's not a question of talent. It's not a question of time. They have all the time in the world. It's just a question of whether or not they can fill that time with quality. And, to go back to the the question, is WWE ever going to be great again? Honestly, I think my answer for that is no. I don't think it's ever going to be like a thing of like, oh my god, I have to watch Raw this week. Oh my god, I have to watch SmackDown this week.
There needs to be a fire lit under their ass. I think that's what it needs to be. And unfortunately, there's no organization out there big enough to do it. The only thing that I can say is that NXT, if NXT was a competing company, yeah, perhaps, maybe.
Right.
If they were big enough, but it's under the same umbrella.
Okay, but here's the thing, though, and honestly, WWE is the top dog. It's the only dog, essentially. They really have no real competition. They don't write television for ratings anymore.
No.
They write television to sell merchandise and to sell stock in their company, because those two go pretty closely hand in hand. And that's why I don't think it's ever going to change, because WWE is not willing to take a bold risk like they did back in the mid-90s with the Attitude Era. They're not willing to just kind of chuck everything they've worked on out the window and said, no, this is what we're doing now, this is how we're going to go forward. They're not willing to take that risk because of it's not even a fact of whether or not they'll succeed or they'll fail, but it's a fact of that's never going to succeed immediately, and in the build-up it does, that it takes for it to go from bad to good, WWE is worried that everybody's going to sell off their stock in the meantime, or they're going to have a bad quarter, so they're going to have to release a quarterly report that says, oh, our merchandise sales are down 40%, and then everybody just bails on the company. Because they're a publicly traded company now,
It stifles them.
Yeah, they're booking for their shareholders, essentially. They're not booking for a creative, artistic product anymore. And honestly, I think that NXT existing is another one of the reasons that WWE is never going to be that good again, because I think that they genuinely look at NXT these days and they say, okay, here's where we can do our good quality stuff, because we don't need to take a risk on that. This is for really hardcore fans who are going to appreciate what these people are doing, no matter what, but they're not worried about necessarily selling a ton of NXT merchandise. They're not worried about shareholders based on who's NXT champion. If John Cena's out of the picture, if you own 10,000 shares in WWE stock, you're going to go, well, their highest selling guy is not here right now, I'm going to sell my stuff. Or the highest selling guy is not getting enough TV time to sell his merchandise, I'm going to sell. And that's why I think WWE... I've made this comparison before, that WWE is Capitol Records now, and NXT is like Interscope. They're like the indie label that we're going to do all our cool little things on, but as far as our main bread and butter, we just have to do whatever's going to sell us the most singles.
I can agree with that, but I mean, if you look at it now the way it is, you can see that there's a lot of similarities as far as merch pushing to the way it was working in the late 80s, early 90s, up until the mid-90s, with all the crazy kid push, the kid centered merchandise.
Yeah, the action figures.
The action figures are one thing, then you got, the foam stuff, you got stuff geared more towards kids, you got the championship belts, you got all that stuff, and you got the adult stuff too, but, it's more along the lines of the more things change, the more they stay the same. It's like they're reverting back to what they did during that time, and, they didn't have anything to keep them motivated, I guess, but the only difference is the type of talent they have. It's a lot more athletic today, but it doesn't necessarily translate to enjoyable television if, the creativity's there. If it's not there, it's just not there.
And another reason that I think that they'll never get back to the prominence that they had before is for another money-making reason, in that they put on 5 hours of main roster television a week, which, they did 4 hours back in the Attitude Era, but think about it. Monday Night Raw is 3 hours long. Okay, take the best television show you've ever seen in your life, whether it's Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones or Sopranos or whatever, and think about if every single episode was 3 freaking hours long. Like, it would just drain you out.
Exhausting.
And it would have been gone. You think about it, like I said, you take a great, episodic television series, like Breaking Bad, what, 5 seasons?
Yeah.
It had, 15 episodes?
50
so we're talking
episodes?
maybe 70 episodes. So 70 hours of television.
Not even, I think it was 50-something, and that's besides the point. It was it was a shortened kind of show.
Right,
It was,
that's
they
but that's
had the amount of that they needed.
Yeah, that's 5 years. Monday Night Raw, that's 3 months of Raw and SmackDown. So it's just impossible to continue to book a good quality, and they'll never go back. I've always said time and time again that wrestling is best in 1 hour chunks, but they'll never go back to hour-long shows because they sell too much advertising for it to be a 3-hour show and a 2-hour show. So I think with all of those things combined, it doesn't matter if they get every single incredible wrestler in the world, like they pull in like Shinsuke Nakamura and AJ Styles and, you know, everybody from AAA, like Pentagon Junior shows up. They could have like literally every good wrestler in the world, and they're just never going to be able to fill those gaps and write all those stories based on this fairly small team they have for booking such a big amount of television.
Well, think of this as well. I mean, you have 3 hours that you got to fill every Monday, and they can't possibly fill it all with, you know, wrestling-related material. They got to do promos. They got to promote things. They have to push merchandise once in a while. You know, T-shirts 15% off this week or whatever, and
buy this burger from Carl's Jr.
They got to fill that time with something, and they can't possibly fill it all with wrestling because they got to do that for the pay-per-views, and they got to do that for the special events once a month. And you think of it this way, Monday Night Raw is longer than the pay-per-views now because they have that overrun every Monday night.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
They fill that time and then some every single Monday night. So it downplays the significance of these pay-per-views and these special events.
So I'm pretty pessimistic as to whether or not they can get back to that prominence. But you are a little more sunny side on it. So what do you think they can do to get to where NXT is now or where they used to be? What can they do?
Like I said, the only thing at this point that I can think of offhand is competition. Competition's healthy. It pushes them to motivate themselves, to take ideas from their talent, from, you know, even the fans, I guess. You know, if they want them to go in a certain direction, they're going to listen because anything to get money. But, you know, I guess it all comes down to the numbers, and it all comes down to the stockholders, like you said, and at this point, that's what matters to them.
So that's like a yes with an asterisk then. Like, there's so many things that need to fall into place. That's basically a no.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that have to change, but, you know, like I said, there's glimpses of greatness, and it happens. I want to say it was the TLC pay-per-view 2 years ago that had a pretty great show, but do they follow up on that momentum? It's, you know, they go for a little while, and they sputter out. WrestleMania this year was great. But what did they do to follow up that momentum? Maybe they go for a month, and then they have the next show, and then it sputters out.
I don't know. Honestly, the reason that I'm so pessimistic is because they had the perfect opportunity to shake things up with this World Heavyweight Championship tournament. They could have gone a million different ways with that, and they went with the way that literally, if you asked like any knowledgeable wrestling fan what was going to happen at the end, Roman Reigns wins, Sheamus cashes in, would have been the answer of the vast majority of them, and they went with that. They went with the safe option because they can't take a risk of putting it on a guy like Kevin Owens or, you know, I mean, Cesaro was hurt, but or Del Rio even. You know, they don't want to take that risk and let somebody new run with the ball.
They want to push Roman Reigns to the next John Cena, but, you know, how are you going to do that when you keep making the guy lose and lose and lose and lose? You can't do that because it's going to make him look like a chump. And that's what's happening now. He looks like a chump.
Yeah, I mean, and they could have, like, they could have even
start pushing him strong this time because, you know, he's got motivation since he tasted the championship.
Right.
But this is the exact same thing that happened to Daniel Bryan a couple of years ago. Same thing. Wins the championship, gets cashed in on. Oh, look, Triple H is there. Let me shake his hand and hug him and whatever else. And, you know, it happened again this time. Yeah. It's too soon.
And the fact of WWE just loves to pull the trick of, oh, well, you like this guy, so we're just going to pull the rug out from under him time and time again, so you'll continue to watch, but then that falls out, as we saw last Monday on Raw. All right, I think that's going to hit our time. So that's our opinions on whether or not WWE can be great again. If you like this, please leave a comment. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment in the comments below. If you're listening to this on like iTunes or anything like that, you can hit us both up on Twitter. We don't have a Twitter account specifically for this yet, but my Twitter account is at Scorcho, SCORCHO. Yours is at Mikey J.
No,
I don't know.
don't normally.
All right,
use
just
it, but
don't
I'll
send
probably
Miner a
start-
message
yeah,
on
no.
Twitter at all. Just send it to me. And if you have any other questions or any questions you would like us to talk about on future episodes, then we will definitely consider that. So that's going to wrap it up for us. This is Change of the Questions. I am Paul Laporte. Mike Miner, say goodbye.
Adios.
See you
Goodbye.
soon. See you soon.